Hello, everybody. Thank you, those of you who came tonight. I know this is a special time at the temple and people are busy, but we're recording it so they get a chance to see what you are doing tonight. So we'll have plenty of opportunity for those of you who are here to ask questions and deal with the issues at hand. Um, I'm very pleased to have Alex Amos, one of our members, join us to give you more of a background of what's available for you in terms of dealing with finding material. How do you find it? By the way, how many of you have found the translation of the sutra on the internet? Anybody? Okay, Alex, that's something to keep in mind. I want you all to have the, I like the Kalavinka translation because it has both the Chinese and English and allows you to go back and forth. So we'll get you on there before the night is over. Venerable D, is there anything you would like to say before we get underway? We like your background.
No, thank you. Thank you.
You said that you did it because it's the year of the wood.
Yeah, supposedly this is the year of the wood. So someone said that, it's good to put something green in the background.
Good. Well, I've got my Bodhi leaves,
Yeah.
and Chris has his uh, place out in San Diego. Beautiful location back there. So, Alex, I think if you're ready, we're going to turn to you.
You are muted, Alex.
Turn on your mic.
Sorry about that. I had it minimized and I didn't. Oh, I'm sorry. Anyway, I'm here now. Hi, I'm Alex, and I will present on the tools for reading Chinese text with the Dasabhumika as an example here. Let me present. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Great. Okay. Here we go. I kind of prepared it with the tool in mind that I built myself, the NTI Reader. So we'll start with that, and I'll demonstrate some other tools as well. So NTI, this is my plan here, an NTI Reader overview, and why would you want to use tools? And then I'll give an example of that with the Dasabhumika, and then we'll leverage some other tools as well. And let's get started here. So an overview of the NTI Reader. The NTI Reader stands for Nantian Temple Reader, Nantian Institute rather, Reader, and it's a sister organization of the University of the West. It's a tool for reading and analyzing Chinese Buddhist texts. And the goal of the reader is to make it easier for non-experts to read the Chinese Buddhist canon. And why would you want to make it easier? Actually, there's relatively few people that can read text in Chinese Buddhist canon. And why is that? You might have met some of those people. They're probably, in this class perhaps, or at the University of the West, but it's actually relatively few. There's some large barriers to reading these Chinese texts. Firstly, the Chinese text is written in Old Chinese, or in Chinese we would say Guwen. Some people might call it classical Chinese, but it's actually not correct. It's not actually classical Chinese, which is a bit older. than the variant of Chinese that the Buddhist texts are written in, but it's certainly very archaic. And it's difficult to understand, even for most modern native speakers. Gulwani is difficult. Also, in the Chinese text, there is a lot of transliteration from Sanskrit and other Buddhist terminology, which even if you can understand Old Chinese, most people understand Old Chinese and read those things, actually do not understand those Sanskrit terms and the other Buddhist terminology. So it's a relatively small number of people who can actually read these texts. And most of them are translated, say, from the years between about the 3rd century and the 11th or 12th century. So it is quite old. Usually classical Chinese, you'd say, is the Han Dynasty or before. So that's about 200 AD and before. So that's classical. So this is the period in between. Um, and it's certainly very archaic. Okay, so the NTI Reader has a number of features to make it easier reading these texts. Firstly, it's got an outline of the Chinese Buddhist canon, the Taisho version of it, in English. So you can navigate it top down in English. Secondly, it's got a dictionary built in, a Chinese English dictionary that includes both classical Chinese or Old Chinese, quite a large one, maybe not as good as some of the copyrighted dictionaries, but still maybe okay. And it has a large number of Buddhist terminology terms, about 25,000 entries, maybe not as comprehensive as some others, but not bad for the most common terms. And also in the dictionary, it's organized like actually like a normal bilingual dictionary. A lot of Buddhist dictionaries you see are not organized like actual bilingual dictionaries. They're organized like they have a lot of explanation about a term, and they only have, say, usually traditional only. So the NTI Reader Dictionary has traditional, simplified, it has Hanyu Pinyin, English, and also Sanskrit where it's applicable. And the reader also passes out the Chinese sentences into individual terms. So one of the challenges with Chinese is that they don't use spaces. And also the punctuation is problematic. Either it doesn't exist or the punctuation in the Taisho canon actually is problematic. It's very poor. So it will help you pass these into sentences. And also it will help you do a full text search. So if you've got a quote somewhere and you need to find it, you can do a text full text search on that. Or if you've got a some kind of phrase or something, you can do a search and find out where that or something close to that occurs in the canon. It doesn't have to be an exact match. It'll give you the most relevant matches. And the address is ntireader.org. Okay, so let's see how to use it with the Dasabhumika. How to find words. So the title of the Dasabhumika in Chinese is 诗竹镜. So we could start with looking for that. So assuming you know the title, or we could actually start with the this title here, which is the Sanskrit title. We could start with that. Enter it in here. And there we go. We've got a few different Chinese terms that match that. And we could start with this one. 诗竹镜. Some people call this like the Sutra of 10 Stages, but I've just got it as Dasabhumika Sutra. So that is the Chinese title and the Sanskrit. And you'll notice that in here, this is the, it's got the Taisho number, 286. And it's got a hyperlink under it. So you can click on the hyperlink and go to the text, 诗竹镜. There's actually a few different versions. So this goes to the one I think is the most common, or actually Kumarai Jiva. Professor Lancaster, can I ask you which one you're using? Which version?
Jiva,
Sorry?
Kumara Jiva.
You're using Kumarai Jiva. Okay, there we go. Good. Yeah, so there we have Kumarajiva. There's a few other versions actually, and we'll see how to find those. So you can, besides looking up in by um, the traditional, you could look up by simplified Chinese if you prefer to, or it gives both. So you could try either one. So there we can see. Then we have simplified Chinese. It works just fine. Looking up like that, or traditional Chinese, we get the same result. Um, the other way to well, in fact, that's the way to find words in general. And you can navigate to the sutra from the word if it is the title of the word. Another way is to browse the index. So let's see how to browse the index. If you go up here to the hamburger menu, the main menu, that'll pop up that and open up texts. If we do this, we can browse through. There's a lot of text in the Taisho. I can't remember how many. There's over 2,000 in the Chinese section of the Taisho. So would take a long time to go through all of them. If you happen to know the volume and the Taisho number, then you can navigate kind of right to that. In this case, it's going to be volume 10. And we just saw it was 286. But it's actually, if you have a look here, it can be useful doing it from this perspective, that you'll see there's actually several translations of the Dhamma Sutra. In fact, there's this one, 284. We can see that one is by Gita. It's called it's the Bodhisattva 10 Stages Sutra, or this one, which has got a more complex title, but it is also the Dasabhumika Sutra. This is the one by Dhammaraksha, 5 fascicles. This one, I think this is the one by Kumarajiva, Dhammaraksha. Kumarajiva here, 286, same as that. And this one, in 9 scrolls by Sila Dharma. So there is a number of different options there. But as Professor Lancaster said, we'll follow the translation by Kumarajiva, T286. Usually the Taisho is organized by such that the ones that are related are next to each other. So it's often good to navigate, even if you can find it by looking up a word or something else, a title, then it can be good to have a look at the index or the contents to see what else may be related to it if there's other versions. So that's how to find it. You can also do a full text search, but you need something to search on. So we'll do that later. So there we go. That is the key there. If you find it via a word, follow the link under the Taisho number. This is what I just showed there, going to text and looking at the contents. And there we go. And then once you've navigated there, you pick the fascicle you want to start with and then click on that. So let's have a look at that. So now we've brought up this is the table of contents of the Dasabhumika, and you can see that there's a link there to each fascicle or scroll. I call them scrolls in the NTI Reader. And if I know of a translation, I'll actually add it here in this section down here, but I don't think there's a translation from this particular Chinese. If I was looking for translations, by the way, I would look at Marcus Biggenheimer's list here, because it's the most comprehensive list I have of translations. And Ah, this is what he says is that there is C279. There was one annotated English done from Sanskrit. Ah, an English done from Sanskrit. Is this the translation? Have you been using an English one from Honda Meguma? I don't know. There is also a Sanskrit translation, a translation from Tibetan. Um, Here, the 10 Bhumis is part of the 84,000 project. We could compare it to that. I don't know how it compares to the Chinese. I haven't looked at it yet. But we can start with the Chinese. So we can look at, for example, fascicle 1. Click on here, and we can click on any word, any character in here, and it will tell us what that means. So, for example, click on here, and this is Kumarajiva. This actually means actually the Tripitaka master Kumarajiva. 三藏祖母老师. And so there, we can do that for any word, even the either highlighted or either underlined or not underlined. Underlined ones indicate proper nouns, but the other ones are okay too. So you can, in fact, mouse over works as well. We can just mouse over that and then see what it is, or we can click on it. So this will tell you every word in that sentence. One time, the Buddha was at the Nimirati heaven, or the Parinimata Vasavatan heaven. And the palace, in the royal palace, with money jewels. The name of the palace, I guess, is actually this is the name of a palace hall, and that is the Mani Jewel Palace Hall. Together with and great bodhisattvas, congregation, many, and Jeyu, who had attained Anuttara Samyak Sambuddhi. So we can go through every word in the entire thing like that and to read it. So you can do that. And that is one way to actually read the the Chinese version of the Dasabhumika.
Let me ask
Yeah.
Alex. I wonder if we could let them go in and start using your NTI Reader right now, see if they can use it.
This is a great idea. Yes, please. If you go to ntireader.org and try doing that, searching on any of the ways that you might use to search, either whatever you're most comfortable with, the Chinese term, Chinese simplified or traditional, or the Sanskrit term, or just navigating through the contents and try to find it.
Okay, so has everybody found nti.org? You got it up? So why don't you put in Dasabhumika?
Yep. There we go. I'll put it in the, I'll just,
Yes.
yeah, let me, I wonder if I can paste it into the Zoom chat. Let me see. Oh, here we go. Paste it in there just so folks can get the Sanskrit diacritics right. Or I'll paste also the Chinese. And also,
Many of you were able to bring up a translation of or a version of the sutra.
and let me put in the address of the NTI Reader as well while I'm at it.
How about sharing your screen, Samantha? Let's see what how she found what she found. Did you say you found it?
Yes. Second. Okay. So this is weird.
Yes, there it is.
Good.
Okay, so I found this one. There are like a couple more options, but I just clicked this one. And yeah, I can see it in simplified and traditional. Yeah. I don't know what this is like. Did you want me to do anything specific or
Yeah, why don't you try and click on the number there, the 284.
284?
Here we go. That's actually another version though, because there's several versions, as I mentioned. This is the version by Gitamitra.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if you had clicked on the one without just the rather than Sutra on the Ten Abodes of the Bodhisattva, go back again. Yeah. Yeah, that one. So that's 286. That's the one I think we want to do, the translation by Kumarajiva. Click on that one. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So there we go. See, it's translated by Kumarajiva.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let's ask Reverend Kanjan to share his screen. Let's see how you're doing.
There we go. That's it. Very good.
Good.
What I had one question, if I could.
Sure.
When I go to the hamburger thing, and I went to text, right? Because I used, oh, this has it broken up into the agamas and that. Okay. So we're going into we have to know which one it's
You have to know
in.
the volume. Yeah. It's volume
Okay.
10.
It's volume 10. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is volume 1. So
Yeah.
if I go to the agamas, because the agamas,
It's going to be in the Hawaiian section.
Hawaiian. Okay.
There you
Oh, there
go.
we
Yeah,
go.
what is Hawaiian?
Garland
No,
soup.
it's actually like a class of, it's like a Hawaiian text, basically.
Gotcha. All right. Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sonny, how about showing us your screen?
Yeah, I think for me, I just copied what Alex pasted in the chat and entered because I was trying to use just typing it in and I couldn't find anything.
Yeah, it needs the diacritics. There is another place where you could find it maybe if you look in Wikipedia of all places, you can find it'll bring up a text even without the diacritics, but it will then show you the diacritics.
It's pretty nice.
Can somebody show us that by going to Wikipedia?
Yeah, I can show that. Oh, I can. Unless
I
somebody
also
else.
have a question because I think you pasted like the Dasabhumika Sutra and then we found the results, but if I don't have the sutra in that word, it doesn't show up even with the diacritics.
Say again, Sonny. If you don't have the sutra?
So, you know how you pasted the Dashabhumika Sutra as like a one single word?
Yeah.
And then when I only have Dashabhumika and I don't have Sutra,
You didn't
and I
find it.
pasted it and it doesn't return any results.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, it's not perfect. It's got several ways of looking up, but it's yeah, it's not perfect.
Well, here you see in the Wikipedia, it's got the Sanskrit for you.
Yes, you could go
You
there.
can cut and paste from there.
Yeah, I think what Sunny's saying is it actually doesn't work. You actually need to have if I just do that, I don't think it'll work. It should work, but it doesn't, just because it's like not perfect. But you actually need to do that.
Make it one word.
Yeah, you need to make it one word. I'm gonna change it, but it's not. Yeah, I noticed that when I was looking at myself. That's something I want to make better. Every time I look at it, there's something that I find I want to make better.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. This Wikipedia entry is kind of useful. That's how I knew there was an 84,000 translation of it.
Yeah, you keep mentioning 84,000. So who would like to take us to 84,000 to look at what they have? What is the 84,000 translated from?
From the Tibetan.
Yes. And it's a very nice translation. I like the translation that they have.
It's a very professional team, the 84,000 folks. I think they're very good. So we can look here, and I don't know how closely it matches their Chinese, but we can see it here.
It certainly matches the Sanskrit. If you
Okay.
get this Tibetan, you're almost got the Sanskrit.
Yep. So we could see how well it matches the Oh, here we go. It's got a lot of information here. It's really nice. The translation into Chinese and Tibetan, they talk about that. Sanskrit versions, they talk about too. Translation to Tibetan and some notes on their own translation and a summary of it, so you don't have to read the whole thing because it's quite long. It's really nice. The 10th Burmi, and then they get into the actual translation. And here we see, and we can compare it ourselves to know how close it matches actually. Then the Bhagavat was in the Diva King Vashavartan's divine palace of precious jewels. Let's compare it. One time the Buddha was at, here we go. It's nearly the same Nimrata and Nirmita Vasavatan heaven. The king's palace there, and it's a palace hall of many jewels. And that's palace hall. There. So actually, it's not that different. The Bhagavat, usually in the Sanskrit versions, and I guess the Tibetan, will instead of saying the Buddha, they'll usually say the Bhagavat, the Blessed One, was in the Diva King Vasavardhan's divine palace of the precious jewels. So I think that's very similar. Together with the great Sangha of Bodhisattvas. Let's have a look. And great Bodhisattva, many, numerous. There we go. So that is similar. They were all irreversible and one lifetime away from attaining the highest complete enlightenment. All, Jie, you are at Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, complete enlightenment, never regressing. So that is the stage where they were on their way to complete enlightenment and they will never regress. So they're all irreversible. So it's very similar. It actually the start of it looks incredibly similar. Nearly word for word.
Interesting when it says one lifetime away.
One lifetime away, yeah. Let's look at
What
the
does the
Chinese.
note tell us? Note 22.
Let's have a look. According to the Sanskrit, the Tibetan omits one lifetime away. So I guess the Sanskrit is saying one lifetime away. the Tibetan is omitting that. What does the Chinese say? The Chinese doesn't say it. It's only got never regressing.
Now, does anybody have an idea why might the Tibetans omit that? One lifetime away from enlightenment?
Is it
Who is
because
that who is one lifetime away? In the old traditional early Buddhism, it's the Arhat. They didn't want to put in an Arhat comment, I think. It would imply that, well, the Buddha really was an Arhat, but you can see how people might be dealing with the issue of changing ideas about who's going to go. So I found that very interesting that the Sanskrit retained that and the Tibetans wouldn't accept it.
I have a question. Do you think because of the Vajrayana tradition as opposed to the Theravadan, that the difference in the school, why they would have perhaps omitted that? Is that what you were kind of saying?
No, Bodhisattva, they didn't want to, I think they didn't want to confuse that the Bodhisattva would ever be like an Arhat, one lifetime away from enlightenment.
Yeah.
He might be, it's really, now that I'm looking at it, I understand, yes, that is one definition of what the Buddha was when he was a Bodhisattva. He had one more lifetime to live, and he came as the Buddha in that last lifetime. But normally we think of that as once returner, never returner. And those are rebirths. So if you hit, at what level do you have, how many lifetimes still left to you? And they consider that the teaching of the Shravakas, the hearers. And therefore, from a Mahayana point of view, it's got some echoes that they don't like. Hello, Venerable. I see Venerable Dung Hong has joined us. Nice to have you. Hello.
No.
So, Alex, back to you. I'm sorry we took such a long time away.
That was a good discussion. Just feel free to any time, anybody actually, especially Professor Lancaster, but anybody is welcome to interrupt me, and we can, because this is what it's all about, trying to use tools to figure out, answer questions. So there we go. Yeah. And of course, the Chinese translations have different, they're not all the same either. In fact, this screenshot here is from another Chinese translation, and it says, rather than the Buddha, it says Bhagavat. It says, at one time, Bhagavat. I think the later versions tend to use Bhagavat rather than Buddha. But that would show you those. And the next thing you can try to do is, rather than clicking on them one at a time, you can look at them all together in a kind of tabulated view. And let me show you what I'm talking about. So we can grab one line here, and we can look at that. We can pass that whole sentence out. Just pass it into the main text area. and it will break them down and give you the definitions for the whole sentence. So you don't have to click it one by one, which gets a bit tedious. You can look at the whole lot in one shot. So we have here one time the Buddha was at Paranamamita Vasavata in heaven, royal palace, at the jeweled the hall of the jewels, and well, the hall with jewels on it, and it's clear that the name of the hall there, and with the great congregation of bodhisattvas who are getting close to complete enlightenment, never regressing, coming from many places in the world, congregating here together, meeting here together.
Well, you can see what happened instead of saying one lifetime away, which would be like an arhat. They change it and say what instead? That the bodhisattva is,
Never regress or change.
yeah, he's never going to regress. So instead of one lifetime more of birth, he's is something which you don't find in the Pali, I think.
We look at one of these other ones, maybe the one from Sila Dharma, we can compare and see what that says. One time, a bit bigger. At one time, the Bhagavat had Tungdao. It had not long after the Bhagavat had attained enlightenment. On the 27th day, he was at the hall of the Paranimirata Vasavata in heaven. At the hall, the same hall with the Manijul palace hall, with the great bodhisattvas, infinite number, and all bodhisattvas had been predicted. This is interesting. This is a bit different. Oh. So it's a bit of expanded here, actually. They've been, they knew Tung okay, they came to assemble here. So that was the last part. It was just in a different order. All of them had Wu Shang Zheng Deng Puti. All of them had complained on the way to complete enlightenment, unsurpassed enlightenment. They had attained non-regression, and one lifetime, Yi Sheng Suo Si. He mentions about one lifetime here. And Deng Ju Jue. Yeah, they would attain it in the next one lifetime away. So it does mention that.
He does.
Interesting.
How about it, the class? How do you feel about this tool? In other words, even if you don't know Chinese and you're reading the English translation and you want to look at the Chinese, you can do it, even if you don't know Chinese. Well, you may have a few little problems, Alex, but there's a wonderful tool, the NTI Reader.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Professor. I don't, have you using a Sanskrit manuscript have you looked at the Sanskrit manuscript at all? I haven't prepared anything on that, but we could potentially look at that.
Yeah, no, we haven't yet.
I don't know actually where to get it. Oh, here we go. The Cambridge Digital Library, 10 Stages Sutra. That looks like, well,
That's a
it's pretty good.
Kalavika. Yes.
Yeah, I didn't know about this translation. Usually yeah, this is nice.
If you go down, you'll show them it has both Chinese and English.
Ah, this is from Xuanhua. Okay. Yeah.
Going down till you get to the text itself.
Oh, this is just this is not the whole thing, I guess. Is it?
Yeah, it is. Should be.
I think this is just what I clicked on is just
Oh,
the whole thing.
but
Interesting.
it is.
See, it looks like maybe you have to buy this.
Yes, you do. They only give you a few pages.
Yeah.
Uh, I can give you a link for free if you want it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Let me see. Chris, do you have the link to Kalavinka from me?
No, I'll get it later and post it into the class.
Yeah, there is a yeah, here's the Sanskrit.
Here's the Sanskrit. And I want to show another tool for working with the Sanskrit. In case you just don't like read Sanskrit, or you're struggling with something here, we can take a sentence out of here, say to the end of here, and we can paste it into this tool called Dharma Mitra, which is a very nice tool for translating Tibetan and Sanskrit. They have a version of Chinese, but I couldn't access it tonight. But let's try the Sanskrit. Oh, here we go. Thus I have heard, at one time the Blessed One, not long after his enlightenment, was dwelling in the realm of the gods of the Paranima Nirmita Savatans, in the radiant palace, the Mani Ratna Garbha, in the mansion of the king of the Vasa-Vatan gods, in the second week after his enlightenment, together with a great assembly of bodhisattvas, all irreversible, bound only by one more birth. So there we
Yeah,
go. It does a pretty nice translation of that. And we got pretty good agreement between the Chinese, the Sanskrit, and the Tibetan, actually.
the Mitra is website maintained by a computer science person at Berkeley, his own private site, but it's pretty good. I like Mitra.
It's very good. Yeah, it's really good.
So can we see if the students can get to it?
Yeah, I pasted the link into the chat there, and let me also paste the link to the Sanskrit version of the text. There we go, and I'll stop sharing, and then
Oh,
get some.
Reverend Kanjan, I'd like for you to see if you can take the Sanskrit and have it translated for you.
Okay, I'll try my best here. Let me open the Sanskrit one.
Show us your screen so we know what you're doing.
All right, so okay, hold on a second if I'm in the right place. I'm not as quick to move. There we go. Okay. Okay, I think this is it. So I believe that this was the one that you sent. Was this the Sanskrit one?
This is the Sanskrit. Keep scrolling. Scroll down a bit till it
Okay.
says text. There we go.
Vam Maya
Yep, that's
Sritam.
it. I'm Srutam. That's I've heard.
Thus I have heard. And then right next to it, I have the translator here. So let's just do thus I have heard.
You can do auto to text. You don't even have to tell it the language.
Oh, really? Okay, it'll automatically detect it. All right.
Yeah.
So I'm here. Oh, Devanagari too. Okay. Does
Yeah.
it say, oh, so it'll detect, will it tell you which one it is, or
I can't remember.
so I did that.
Okay, let's think. And there we go. That's I've heard.
What if I put Devanagari? It's the same, right?
No, well, this is the input on that side. The left side is the input. The right side is the
Okay.
yeah. So that's if you wanted to put Devanagari into.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Thank you.
Uh,
Is that all you wanted, Professor?
well, let me say a word. Do you see Harvard, Kyoto? Does anybody know what that means?
I do. Well, let me see if other folks. Sorry, I don't want to jump in. Give a chance to some of the students.
Anybody?
Is it the Harvard Kyoto is I think we had used that for one of our Sanskrit translator as well, right? But you have to have it written out specifically with the there we go. Sound what is it? The script.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh, it's a very antiquated system now that we have more sophisticated systems. We don't need to use that. We are able now to show the diacritics in a computer,
Diacritics, yeah.
whereas before we couldn't show the diacritics. So since you couldn't show them, how could you make sure people knew what the Sanskrit letter and vowel was? But the Devanagari never had a problem, of course.
I tried to use the Harvard Kyoto in translate. I took the Sanskrit classes, and in translating it, it was extremely hard. If you didn't get it properly written, you wouldn't find anything. It was really complicated. So that's a good way of putting it.
Yes.
Right?
So we still have a challenge of inputting the Sanskrit if we only have a keyboard that can type in Latin. So the Harvard Kyoto can be useful in doing that. So I put a link in there. Let me show what I'm talking about. Suppose we want to type in a Sanskrit word like Maya. We can type in Harvard Kyoto on the left-hand side, and you can choose here Unicode. Roman maybe. There we go. So the output can come in like Unicode with the A diacritic, or I think the other one was Shrutam is the next one. So we can put in the Sanskrit for that. You put in the Harvard Kyoto would be SH for that. Shrutam. So there we go. So we can type in Harvard Kyoto on the left-hand side and have the Unicode come out on the right-hand side and then cut and paste, copy and paste rather, out of there. So it can be quite, I think it still can be quite useful to know Harvard Kyoto, although as Professor Lancaster says, it is antiquated. Nobody would want to read Harvard Kyoto anymore, but if you want to input text like this, it could be maybe a good.
I shouldn't criticize them because at the time there was no way to do what you're seeing here.
Hmm.
We didn't have the ability to put the diacritic there. So it was a solution to a very difficult problem.
Yeah.
I think that you can output it, show what you can output it in different
Oh, other
scripts.
things as well. Yes. Exactly. I have a lot of scripts because you can when they say Sanskrit, this is kind of user friendly. Not everybody knows what Devanagari and
Yeah.
the Unicode is, so they just say like well Sanskrit. It's actually designed not just for Sanskrit, it's actually for like Hindi and other Indian scripts as well, Telugu, etc.
Yeah. So it means that scripts should not be a big issue for us anymore.
Yeah.
We can have them the way we want them.
Yeah, we don't need a special keyboard for every script anymore.
Yeah.
Mm. Oh,
Okay, you want to continue, Alex?
sure. Okay, so we did that. Word detail as well. So word detail, there's a bit more to the word detail. And then I went over that kind of quickly. But now we've got the it passed out. We can click on any one of these to see more detail about the word. So for example, this one here, which is kind of a long Sanskrit term, we can see that it'll give us some more detail about it and a few different ways of writing it in English and the Sanskrit, the Pali, even the Japanese. A very short description. There's not much of a description of what it actually means. And then some references here that I'll explain a little bit later how to find what those are. And that is one example of a word. And if we look at another example, like one time, or maybe one life. Do we have one lifetime? Let me get the one lifetime one because that was interesting. One lifetime. So if we look at one lifetime, you can also click on more details. You can click on this thing, more details to find out that. So one lifetime, why is there three there? It's because there's different meanings of a word. And that's one of the challenges of reading something like, looking it up in the dictionary, one word at a time, because you've got to put the words together and you've got to choose which one is the right meaning. So this could mean several things actually. In the text, it really means one life, one lifetime. But it could mean something else. It could mean the whole of one's life. In fact, this is what the glossary of the humanistic Buddhism, the Foregone Shan glossary, it suggests all one's life, one's whole lifetime. So there's some more information you can kind of glean out of the word entries. So in general, what the extra information is will depend on what specific word it is. Here we have Fa which is the Dharma realm. And it depends on what the particular word is as to what the extra information is. But often for Buddhist terminology, will have the Sanskrit equivalent, sometimes a Pali and a Tibetan.
I think
And
Reverend Kanjan has a question, Alex.
yes, please. Oh, please, Reverend.
Yeah, thank you. I have a question because when I'm reading it, uh, in the Chinese, when we're reading the sutra, it's the word order where sometimes it jumps around with the word order. How does that work with us? It's just automatically, because I mean, if you go, that was one of the problems when people would do translations is that they would just move, in a horizontal line. Whereas sometimes when you're reading the gathas, which, in Japanese, the way that they do it with the Chinese version is that they break it up into the gathas, which is like, I think, 5 characters. And it kind of, you jump from the first to the third, fourth, and then back to the second and then the fifth to understand the actual meaning of that particular phrase. How does that work with this specifically? Because we're reading it, in a linear line, right?
Yeah, it's a good question. Um, this tool is really intended for you to like understand every word in the sentence. Um, you can see if we compare, like, for example, two Chinese terms, these two sentences are the same. Um, but they arrange things a bit differently. They're just two different translations of a Sanskrit sentence. Chinese is a left to right language, so most of the time, um, the order is somewhat predictable. Word order in Chinese is somewhat more predictable than some other languages, actually. But having said that, they can still arrange things different. There is some flexibility to arrange things in different orders depending on just the personal preference of the translator. And you're right, Revan, if it's a Gatha, then often they'll do, it's not just the taste of the translator. rearrange things to make it fit into the whatever it is, 4-character verse or 5-character verse, pattern verse. So they do, and it can become a bit confusing. So how to actually put it all together and make sense of it? Another thing you can do is you can try it in like ChatGPT. There is a Dharma Mitra version of this, but I just couldn't access it tonight, so apologize about that. But my next go-to after that is Dharma Mitra, is the ChatGPT, and you can just ask that to translate it. If you cannot make sense out of the Chinese, if the words look just like alphabet or Chinese equivalent of alphabet soup, you just put it into ChatGPT and ask it to translate, and it will usually do a pretty good job. Let's see. Not perfect because it got the name of the palace. That's, I think, I don't know. That doesn't sound right. Mahamani. Well, the Mani is jewel. So, it's like,
Maharaj is the great jewel.
yeah, the great jewel, exactly. So, and this looks a bit suspect, but the good thing about ChatGPT is that it can put the words together and make sense of a sentence. He was together with a great assembly of bodhisattvas, all of whom were unwavering in the pursuit of Anuttara, some body, perfect enlightenment, and had gathered there and had gathered from other worlds to attend the assembly. It's not bad, actually. But certainly the idea with the idea with the NTI Reader is to be somewhat more accurate with regards to these terms here, rather than you know, depend on the LLM to give you the right terminology. The focus here is to actually look up the terminology and provide you references to where it actually where you can actually verify that that is the right translation. It'll give you a number of references, not for every word, but for most of the words, it'll give some references to actually check where that definition came from. So somewhat more verifiable than ChatGPT. But you're right, Reverend, you do need to be able to put it all together. Does that answer your question, Reverend?
It does, yeah. It also shows why in the tradition you need a teacher to go through each of it together to understand it. Because even the translation itself, the subtleties of some of the words I would mix up, and it would change the entire sentence. It's fascinating. But you did an amazing job here. I wish I had this when I was a monk in the monastery reading the Chinese. So it's great work. Amazing.
Thank you. Yeah. Um, Um, yeah, so how do we chase down some of those other sources of information? In the detail there, we have some, it's abbreviated, and here we have BL is Boswell and Lopez, Princeton Dictionary of Buddhism, and Foreground DB, this is the Foreground Shan Dictionary of Buddhism, SH is Sudhil and Hodis, and you can find those by here, looking in here, and we can see if we scroll down to the bottom of the page, there's a abbreviations page. So here it will show you what they mean. BL, Boswell and Lopez, Foreground DB, it's the Foreground Dictionary of Buddhism. This link just changed, by the way. They changed that, so I just have to update that. But I have got an updated version here. So you can, for example, go and follow that. So we click on that and look for the term. For example, which was I on? The we could look for that one. See if we can find it. Here we go. So this is we'll tell you a lot about it. It's somewhat different, a very different style from NTI Reader. It will give you quite a bit of information about this heaven. And there. So, but it can be a bit of a challenge to read all this. It's all in traditional Chinese. And but what you can do here, if you've got to this, you can take that and you can put it either back into the NTI Reader to find out what those mean. Well, they're just different ways of writing the same thing. Or we're going to look at this. And oh gee, they've got a lot of different ways of saying the same thing. We get something a bit more interesting. Look at this. So then you can like find out, there's so many terms in the Foregoing Dictionary of Buddhism that it can be challenged to see it, but this will explain like why it's called this heaven. And if you get sick of looking up the individual words, you can always just go to ChatGPT and ask it to translate into English. Heaven derives its pleasure by enjoying delights created by others. Hence, it is called the heaven of supreme autonomy and power. He got the Sanskrit name right. There we go. So yeah, combining I think with NTI Reader and ForegroundDB and ChatGPT and Dhammamitra, between the tools, you can really you can usually get to the bottom of most Buddhist texts. There we go, example from ForegroundDB. There we go. That is mostly actually what I have prepared for tonight. I can show a bit more of other tools if people have got questions.
Yeah, if you can show them more, do. Time.
Yeah. So let's have a look at.
Let's just go by everybody and see what their thoughts are about what they've seen so far. How about it, Sonny? What's your thought if you see what we've done tonight thus far?
The class.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I think it definitely connects to the class we took last semester. And I just think of like how we were introduced so many different websites, and that even the one, the NTI Reader, and then we have the Foreground Buddhist Dictionary, they're all both somehow like affiliated with Foreground Sen, but then we have two different systems. So I was thinking like, are they ever getting integrated, or is that not the plan? Because I think having like two systems would just make things very complicated, because you have to make sure the two systems are translating everything in the same way. So I was wondering why the decision to do so.
Well, I can only speak for the dictionary. We're about to come out with the English translation of it into English. It has 33,000 words and phrases, so it's the largest Buddhist dictionary. And now it's going to be in English. And we're not yet able, although they put some of it up online. We did a soft launch of 5,000 of the entries. The decision that we made was to translate the dictionary, and that's enough. Don't write a new dictionary. If you write a new dictionary, you're adding decades rather than years to your work. So we made the decision just to translate. And that was hard enough. It took us 10 years. And we've just now come to the end of it. And I think you just have to accept that you're going to have Mitra and you're going to have the Foreground Buddhist Dictionary, and you're going to have these multiple sources. The closest thing to putting it all together is Alex's NTI Reader. What you're just seeing is, as far as I know, the closest thing to being able to jump about and put together material from various sources. So I'm sorry, Sonny, I don't think your wish will come true.
I can give a little background why I started the NTI Reader. One of the reasons was I was spending so much time looking up stuff in the dictionary. I was reading Chinese text, and with paper dictionaries, I was spending so much time looking up the words. I felt it was so inefficient. And then back in the day, you had to count up strokes if you're using a paper dictionary, and you didn't know what the pinyin pronunciation was. You have to do the strokes. You have to know the radicals, and know the left radical maybe is a water radical. It's got 3 strokes. I go to the index at the back of the dictionary, and it would take like several minutes to look up a word. And I thought this was ridiculous. So I started building a tool to do it more efficiently.
Very good job. Some others, Shanchan, what do you think, having seen this tonight? What's your
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I use NTI Reader every day, almost every day. So I use it for many years. So thank you for Alex's contribution. We actually use NTI Reader because we find it's really convenient. In mainland China, Singapore, we use the simplified Chinese, and Taiwan, Hong Kong, they use the traditional Chinese. But NTI Reader is really good that whether you type which kind of Chinese, you don't have to switch the typing method. They just immediately get it and translate it to English. For us, it's really convenient. So, and one of my friends, so she's living in Sydney, Nanjing Temple now. She also said that she even enthusiastic tried to find bugs and report to Alex. So she's Xiaomeng. I'm not sure whether Alex remember her. So actually, we really love NTI Radar. And so also, I want to share something that I think that the AI tool is really good, but now they're getting more and more. And for example, we are in the Foguang dictionary translation team now, and Venerable Zhiyue, Venerable Miao Guang, they recommend us to use DeepSeek. And maybe you have heard this very popular China AI now, because DeepSeek's database in the Chinese space, so they can understand those traditional Chinese sutras really good. So we use it now, and also cloud is better. The two are better than ChatGPT. So we combine all those two together and try to translate the English dictionary now. So it's really fun, and we always searching new things every day. So yeah, but still another thing I haven't thought about, because Alex showed us how to copy a sentence in NTI Reader, and it will kind of break to some words, and they help us to understand every word, especially for those who don't know Chinese. I think it's really useful because I know Chinese. I don't have problem when I enter NTI. So yeah, thank you. Thank you, Alex.
How about it? Yvonne, are you there?
Sorry, I'm actually in transit. I just joined, but before Foguang Dictionary, yeah, I do use NTI Reader. So I'm also on the Foguang Dictionary team as well too. So obviously I go to Foguang Dictionary the first round. But if I can't find anything, then I usually also refer to NTI Reader, and also DBB as well too. So I do use NTI Reader quite frequently as well.
Good. Available, Punghang, how does this help you? Are you seeing anything that helps you from your knowledge of Pali into Chinese?
Professor, because I don't have a background in any kind of like Sanskrit I learned, but not much. And for the Chinese, I don't know about Chinese. So the Pali I know, but not that much. But I can read in Pali in some, not all, but probably maybe 50% I can read in Pali. However, in this tag, I try to find the in Pali, but it doesn't have in Pali. Yeah, only only in Sanskrit. So the thing that I need to do is just to observe, to understand what is going on.
Well, I think that you've asked a question about
Yeah.
how to deal with the Mahayana Sutra. So you can take one Mahayana Sutra and use all this tool to really see what it says.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what I'd like to see you do.
Thank you. I asked about Bodhisattva, but after I read, because I think we don't have this class, because I joined 2 times and then nobody allowed me to go in, to get in. At 6 o'clock, probably it doesn't start yet, right? So I think probably no class, and then I read chapter 1, and then I understand my question when I read in chapter 1.
Sure.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything you want to add?
You just have to say that when Alex was talking about looking up the radicals in his dictionary and that I remember those days. I remember those days. Maybe it's
Yeah,
still a good skill to have because I still have those dictionaries, but I remember, like you're saying, just to take one character and, try to put in a sentence. I mean, it's just the interesting memories. Thank you.
I learned that process using Nelson's Japanese English dictionary. That was the best uh, use of how to look it up from the radical. I used that as my guide years and years ago. So what I think you're seeing is people talking about how difficult it used to be or how we had to do it at the beginning compared to where we are today is we're very fortunate that we have all this help. And so you've got an opportunity to see how much you can deal with all this material. By number one, just starting with a word and seeing how much you can learn from one word. In fact, let's do that right this minute. Everybody get the NTI org up and put in one word just to start. You can do it in Sanskrit, or you can do it in Chinese, right? Or you can do it in just in English and see if it will take you to a Sanskrit or other. So, Alex, while they're trying to do that, maybe you could just show us how it's done. We start with one word.
Sure. What's the word I was thinking of was this Paranirmata,
Yes,
Nirmita, plus of art in heaven. The NTI Reader will give you some information about the word besides the definition here and the Sanskrit equivalent, etc. The fact that it's got a Pali equivalent is interesting to me. It tells me that it's a heaven that's referred to in the Pali text, not just the Mahayana text. So that's kind of important. And It's the sixth of the six heavens of the desire realm. So that's interesting. That tells me that it's the desire realm, that it's a Buddhist specific heaven. And I could go and have a look in these, but also the NTI Reader will tell you, it does a bit of analysis on how that word is used in the canon and what other words are contained in there. This is from the Humanistic Buddhism Glossary, but here we have this incredibly long word, and I don't know what this one is, but it's incredibly long. I don't know why I've got such a long thing there. But that is, oh, there we go. It's the title of a text. Um, that whole thing, that's a very long title of a text. It looks like an esoteric text, in fact, to me, because it starts off with the Jinggang Ding Yu Jia. So that is the this is the the thing is where they'll do something on your head, and then this is a yoga thing. So this is some kind of esoteric ritual. It's a ritual. It's an igui. It's a ritual associated with something on this heaven, which is interesting. But often the word will be contained in other words. It can give you a hint about it and where it's mentioned. We can see that heaven is mentioned in the long discourses. So it's mentioned in the Agamas a number of times, not that many times, but sometimes. It's also mentioned in other sutras and the Shastra here and the Abhidharma and the large perfection of wisdom. And it's interesting that this heaven is mentioned in such actually a broad range of things, going from the Agamas to the Mahayana text and esoteric text as well. So that is actually a bit of a surprise to me. And here it's actually also got collocations, like what else would you associate with this word? What are the things that are associated with it? And here's the top one is the king. This heaven has a king. So this king of this heaven, in fact, the example in the Dasabhumika, it talks about the king of this heaven, the royal palace there. So the king of this heaven is an important person. Being born in this heaven is important. This is the decoration of a palace. Probably the beings of the heaven. The palace of the heaven, the Wanggung, is important. There's another way of writing palace there, just gung. And then that's interesting, 1,000 of these heavens. I don't know why you'd have 1,000. Even more than 1,000, 100 million. And then inside, this is just inside the heaven. And then the beings of the heaven, I think this has been the jung on the end. So I can tell just from looking at that word, at that heaven, what it applies to. Is it a Mahayana concept? Is it a general Buddhist concept? And how is it kind of used? So, of course, you can discover different things about different kinds of words, but that's an example of how to use collocations and word frequencies.
Good. Okay, let's go to see what word you've worked with. Who wants to go first? Share your screen. Well, Shanchan, have you chosen a word?
Okay, I think we can try it together because I'm just using NTI Reader because we are learning Lotus Sutra now. I'm trying to think about a bodhisattva's name. It's in so the watery endowment bodhisattva. Let's see whether something. Okay, so that's always something I have come across many times. So sometimes you were really good. Maybe for some don't understand Chinese, they will break these words like this is the Miao Zhuang Yan Wang and the Bodhisattva to King Wonderful Adornment in Lotus Sutra. And also there's something that scroll 7 in Lotus Sutra if you click it. Oh, here. And it will come up like the Chinese version in the sutra. But unfortunately for me, it would be good that if they'll provide English version, it'd be good. But I know it will be a lot of work. But sometimes it will be, and also similar terms like the other in the sutra. And so that's why sometimes NTI Reader is always the priority one for me to look up the English translation for the terminology. And the second one will be might be DBB and the other Mitra, other AI. So that's my trying.
Good. Sorry. How about Sunny? How about you sharing? What word did you choose?
So I picked compassion because I feel like it's a word that has a very complex interpretation. It has a very broad meaning. And then when I type in, I get like multiple Chinese outputs. So I think it's pretty interesting.
What do you think about these?
I think because I do understand Chinese, I think each and one of them, I think some of them, I would say just like from how I feel about the connotation, some are more like positive than others. So there is like a slight difference if you just give me like two phrases. Here I would have a different feeling and interpreting the language, the word itself. But in English, it's all compassion. It's the same word.
Okay, thank you. Samantha, which word did you choose? Your mic is turned off.
Oh, sorry. So I picked samadhi because it was mentioned in the text a couple times, and I wasn't entirely sure what it meant. So I clicked on this one first just because it's like based on the dictionary, so I figured it might be a bit more accurate. But I have heard of this one before, but I haven't heard of this before. But I don't, I mean, I can try to click on something. It's a lot of text. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. I can also click on this. Oh, there it is. Okay, so let's see. Higher level of concentrated meditation. Yeah, so I don't know. I think it can be helpful to kind of like look up certain words here too sometimes, or like kind of see what other texts have mentioned it. Yep. That's it.
Okay. Um, Michelle, are you there? I can't tell. Hello.
Hi
What
there,
word?
Professor.
What
Um,
word?
Okay, I actually looked up prajna and wisdom just to kind of see if they gave the same result, and they did not. So here I can share my screen. Mm, Hold on. Actually, can come back to me. Here we go. So, Chinese, here we go. Okay. So here we have wisdom, and as you can see, there are actually a lot more text than are shown right here where I just looked up prajna. Now, I don't know Chinese, so like I don't know the difference in the text, but I can see there's quite a difference in just the number of text. So I would actually have to go in and see what is being translated in which way to see like what other words are being translated potentially as wisdom versus prajna. And then that might also give me like a deeper understanding of the difference. So that's interesting to me.
One of the things that is shown here, Michelle, is that when the Chinese word or the Chinese transliteration is not prajna but panna.
Okay.
So let me ask Venerable Colm,
Oh,
what is the Pali word panna?
panya.
Panya.
Yeah, we use panya.
This
Prajna.
one.
Prajna in Sanskrit, but in Pali, panya.
So what would you think? Why would the Chinese transliteration seem to reflect I won't call it a Pali pronunciation, but a Middle Indic pronunciation rather than trying to produce prajna? Why was that the case, do you think? Do you have any ideas?
Could you ask again? I don't understand well.
Well, here's the Chinese. Um, can you move up and show panna samadhi, the first one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, let's see.
Show the sound of the Chinese.
Okay. Not find it. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, it's not bringing it up.
I think what it tells us is that the Chinese did not always get a Sanskrit document. They got it in other dialects
Mm.
or they got it in Gandhari
Oh, yeah.
instead of getting it in a pure Sanskrit. So as a result, when they made their transliteration and introduced it to the Chinese-speaking world, we don't have a pure high Sanskrit word. They used some form of dialect. And the dialect was very closer to Pali than to our Panini, we call it Panini Sanskrit pronunciation. So the Sanskrit language, the Middle Indic language of India, was changing, and it had many variations. So the text in Chinese, you will not always find it representing
Sounds good.
exactly the way Sanskrit sounds. So in order to do that in a way, you've got to go back and try to reconstruct the ancient Middle Indic pronunciations, the old pronunciations, the older forms of language in India, as well as the older forms of the pronunciation of characters in China to get it to match. And if you do, sometimes it matches very well. And other times, as you see here, it doesn't really match. We translate it, we say prajna, but those characters don't tell us that.
And
Professor, okay, Professor. So the Mahayana original text, is it in Sanskrit or in Chinese?
The original text that this would be translated from was in Indic language,
Oh, Indian language.
Indic of some form. And so we say it's from the Sanskrit, but it's not always the case. I think that we need, and people are now doing that, much more work is being done with Gandhari than has ever been done before. So we are seeing how the Chinese reflects language usage in the Indic environment. And the transliterations, and therefore, the first time a word occurs tells us something about the usage of language in the text which the Chinese were looking at. So, for example, if you want to know, how do you find out what's the first time the word prajna occurred in this Pana form? I'll go back to you, Alex. What do you think? Can you use the reader to tell us the first occurrence in terms of date of translation?
Yeah, thanks, Professor. You've raised a really good point here. Bore, Michelle, would you mind stop sharing? Was it Sunny or Michelle? Who's sharing? Thanks. Bore, the Chinese word for prajna, bore sounds nothing like prajna in Sanskrit. So there's a story behind this. And there's definitely got to be a reason why it doesn't sound anything like that. Let me share my screen and see what I don't know. I do not know if the Sanskrit, if the NTI reader can help us do this. Let me try it. I just don't know if it'll if it will actually help us do anything. Here, let me just type in the Chinese. Boy, oh, do we even getting it in China? Oh, hold on. There's the Chinese. Yeah, and I think as professor, as you mentioned, we need to know who was the first translator, the Chinese translator, to use this term. And we can see, I think the problem with this particular example, bore, a prajna, is that it's used in so many texts. It's such a common term in Chinese that it'll be hard. This is actually the NTI Reader here organizes these in terms of most frequently used, actually, which is not what we want for this task. It is organizing the largest frequency. So it's got this version at the top, this sutra here, protection of the rule of the state of the Dharani Sutra. It uses it some 246 times. So it just simply it's the most common down to the less common, but still it has more than you can possibly list. I think to answer that question, I believe that C Beta has a tool for this. I am just going not off the script here. I might not be able to figure this out. I believe that C Beta has something that might do this. C Beta Online. They have something like the NTI Reader, but it's got some features that are a little bit different. Here we go. Here are all the places it occurs in the different texts. But it's got synonyms. It's got things with titles. I thought it might have like a table of when the term was first used. Yeah, I'm sure there's a tool somewhere in the data that has this, but I'm not sure where it is. It might take me a while to find it.
When did the Chinese start translating?
Chinese started translating in the 2nd century, and Chagall is the first translator. Yeah, and Chagall, but I don't think he used this term.
If you didn't use it, then we turn to the next.
Yeah.
It would be Shema.
Yeah, Dhamaraksha, maybe he's not the next one actually. There's others between and Chagall and Dhamaraksha. Dhamashima. I think you mentioned Dhamashima rather than Dhamaraksha, sorry, but there, yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Well, if you're translating the Prajnaparamita Sutra, then you know that you have to use this word.
Oh yeah, certainly by the time of Kumarajiva, I feel like Kumarajiva introduced most of these, and he overruled. Just from my gut feeling, he overruled the previous translators. I'm sure he did a lot of research on the best translations to use, but I feel like he overruled most of the previous translators and came up with his own terminology. So for sure he used the term a lot because we have it right in the Simon Sutra and others that he translated. But whether or not previous translators used it, I have to do a bit of research. I don't think I can just do it on the fly and figure this out. I need to do a bit of research on how to do that.
In other words, when we're trying to think about when did the first occurrence of a term happen in Chinese, then we have to go back to the 2nd century translations to start.
Yeah.
And as he just indicated, Anshirgao was one of the first translators. And certainly Lokashima in 179 had to use this term.
You think Lakshmana had to use Bore? I'm sure he had to use Prajna.
Yeah, and what you want to see is what did Lokashima use?
I
Would you do that?
I can maybe do that. Let me give me a second here. I need to go and look for what Lakshmana translated. Let me have a look.
While you're doing that, I'll just explain to people. The Chinese translations were made by teams of people, not one translator, but teams of people. And they sat around a table, and some knew Sanskrit or whatever Prakrit was being brought from Indic sources. And they tried to tell people in Chinese what the Chinese characters would be for that sound. And those teams were creating the vocabulary which we are looking at today. And we can pretty much state that these ordinary terms like prajna would be words that the earliest of those teams would probably have had to try to translate. Now, a lot of times we're told that they chose Taoist terms. But I think we can be more precise than that these days. Yes, Reverend Kunjan.
When you say Prakrit, you were saying like the original when you use that term?
Indic Prakrit.
Okay, all right. Not a specific language, but just the original is what you're.
I'm not sure which language it would be. So,
but one of the Indic languages, as you said before, right? Okay.
Yeah, middle, and it's. I don't like to use language. I would rather use some of the word. It's like, here's.
Yeah, so Professor, as you mentioned, Lakshmana had to use it because it's right in the title of his translation of the Perfection of Wisdom in 8,000 lines. So we can see that the Dao Xing Bore Jing. So maybe it was Lakshmana who introduced this this term. So that makes it very early. So this was translated in around. Oh, it just says the Han Dynasty, the latter Han Dynasty. So something around the year of. Oh, here we go. It's in your reference there, 179.
Yeah.
So that is certainly before early, and when Gandhari would have been maybe more prevalent than Sanskrit. And given that Lakshmana was from Gandhara, I think it's quite likely that that it's Gandhari, that is how it was pronounced in Gandhari. There is some resources on Gandhari too. There is Gandhari .org. There is a whole website on this, and they have a dictionary, a Gandhari dictionary. So I haven't used it before, but we could have a look and see if we can find Prajna. Oh, there's a lot. I don't know if we can just scroll. I guess it's not as user friendly as gee, I don't know how to use this. It's got middle. Seems like you can. This is from Stefan Barms, who's a German scholar on Gandhari. Looks. Gosh, how do I use this dictionary? I've got to scroll through the entire dictionary. I can't search it. Dear. Okay. No, it looks like there's no way to search the dictionary. You just have to
Is it any of these little boxes over here used for searching?
Oh, here we go. Hey, you're right. I was hidden behind my It was hidden behind my okay. Let's see what they got for Prajna. Okay, P Pana Raja. I don't know. It didn't have anything for Prajna, although oh no. It's not quite alphabetical in English order. Okay. First the name. Mm, Let me put the diacritics in there to see if that helps. No matches. Okay. Enema. No.
So
Yeah.
it would appear that this is not from not a Gandhari text.
It's possible that it actually is some kind of other Central Asian pronunciation too.
That's possible.
It could be that I just haven't found
But
it yet. I think it's
we
somewhere.
do know that Middle Indic in India is closer to Panna. Wait a minute here, Prana.
Oh no, but it didn't
Oh,
seem
that's
to
Prana.
match. I think it's different. I think that means breath.
It's yeah, that's Prana.
Yeah. Honey.
I think what we've just discovered is very interesting. That not every text that went into early China has to be from Gandhari, which a lot of people are now beginning to say. Maybe they're wrong.
Yeah.
Middle Indic texts from India were being brought to China, and it represented a dialect of India rather than Gandhari.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah. It's hard to know. This is a detective problem that I think would take some time to research. Maybe somebody's already done this research before, I don't know. Yeah, but a little bit of detective work to figure this out. No, no.
Well, it would make more sense for me, it always has, to feel that a text as complex as the Prajnaparamita would have been developed in a portion of India where there was a crucial mass of monastics to have produced it. And I would be surprised to find it being produced on the outskirts of the central Indian continent.
That's a great point. That's a great point, Professor. But yeah, that's a great point. I agree with that. But I think some Central Asian vocabularies have found its way into Chinese
Of
because
course, yes.
some of the translators clear came from Central Asia, like Dharmaraksha and so on. They might have been able to read Chinese, but maybe during the discussions they had and their way of pronouncing it wasn't actually Sanskrit and wasn't Gandhari. It would have been their own way of saying it. They may have been just using their own dialect. I don't know.
Yeah, I as I said, I just feel that having worked with Prajnaparamita literature, it is so profound and has so much depth to it that
Oh,
it
yeah.
has got to develop in a place where there are a lot of people working. You don't find individuals being able to create something as complex as a whole series of thought by themselves. It just doesn't happen, I think. Well, everybody, I want to thank Alex. I thought tonight was, I hope the rest of you feel that. And let me ask you the usual question. So, what happened to you tonight listening to this stuff? You each got about a sentence. Reverend Kanjan, what happened to you?
Yeah, it just made me realize the depth, and especially even with the translators as they came into China, and understanding each of them, where they came from, how they translated the time period. It just keeps, as they talk about dyeing the indigo, it just keeps darker and deeper and deeper and deeper. It's fascinating. And then also your hypothesis about the Wisdom Sutras, in Central India. That I really understand that. And yeah, that's just so much. So amazing. So much enjoyed. Thank you.
Venerable Colin, how about you?
Oh, to me, I feel like so happy to understand more in depth about the translation and the original translations, and I want to ask more questions because of the time I cannot ask. So yes, I feel so curious about all of those, especially with the translation. Thank you
Good,
very much.
good. Chan.
Oh, for me, I see that there's something keeping unchanged for thousands of years, that we're always looking for the Dharma, eager for the Buddhist teaching. But the things change is that the ancient times, the people try to translate the sutras by team, but they have to use paper writing. But today we have the AI technology, it will be more convenient. But I think that we still need a team. So something is really unchangeable, interesting. But we keep looking for the Dharma.
Okay, thank you. Sunny, how about you? What happened to you tonight?
Mm,
Yes.
yeah. Yeah, I definitely think it's very interesting when we were looking at these texts and we see when they were first translated. And so it's not like we are just translating now. They have been people translating them many hundred years ago. And it's through like the generations of translation that the Dharma can be passed on until this day. Um, and hopefully we can continue to pass it on to the next generation and make it very accessible for everyone.
Good. Michelle.
Hi, I just wanted to thank Alex. I appreciate and understand that your work is a part of a very long tradition of making the Dharma more accessible. So just, thank you to you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Samantha.
I have been trying to learn Chinese recently, to read it. I understand it, but I have a really hard time reading it. So I just really appreciate the NTI Reader as like a really good resource for learning how to read, because you have like the pinyin directly there, and you have it in like multiple different, like the simplified versus traditional. So that's very, very helpful. Thank you.
Iman.
Yeah. So I take it along the same line. I'm just very appreciative that we now can utilize the technology, and now with the AI, to help me further understand the sutra, because my Chinese is good for uh, what is it, for lay people, right? But when it comes to classical, or when it comes to sutra, um, oftentimes I don't understand. And now I think just because, I help with the translation, I'm actually able to read more and understand the Chinese text, which is great. So thank you all for working on this and making it possible.
Thank you. I don't know if Alex or Honorable D or Chris, if you have anything you want to say before we close.
Well, I want to thank Venerable Di Hong because he found a very interesting article on this terminal by Paul Harrison, who's a very prominent scholar of this stuff, Gandhari and translation from Indic to Indic languages to Chinese. So thanks for finding that. And Chris found the Gandhari word for prajna, wisdom. It's pramna. So thanks for finding that and putting in the chat, Chris.
I just want to say thank you. I guess, Alex, you are our human AI, or human database for AI. This gives me a headache because, I did my dissertation 10 years ago, pretty much, and I was on Taisho. I used to use Taisho, just so you guys know, and I had to read word by word and try to translate when I was doing my translation, but it was great, I have a quite a few old translation or studies on the old translation, but it is on a different PC, so I couldn't find it. If you guys wanted to have some of them, I can send it to Chris, or just let me know. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I would be interested. Thank you.
All right. Chris, I'll turn it back to you.
Oh, thank you, Professor Lancaster. Dihong, yes, Venerable, please send those along. I'll make them available on our course website. And of course, I'd like to thank Alex for your work that you've done in this field. It's incredible. NTI Reader is so useful for someone like me who has no Chinese background. So this is such a great tool, and it keeps evolving and getting better. And also showing us these multiple tools out there. And I think having a multiplicity of tools, resources, sources, and translation is a strength, rather than having everything consolidated into one homogeneous thing. Having different perspectives, different approaches to these things is such a wonderful thing that we have these days at our fingertips. And it's one of my favorite activities is comparing translations of Buddhist texts. There's probably nothing I'd like to do more on a Friday night. So I thank you all for spending this time. And again, thank you, Alex. See you all next week. Take care. You will.
Good night, everybody. See you next week.
Bye.
Hey, good night.
Bye
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.